late night video. I'm going to sit down, watch Travis have a great conversation with Mike McDaniel. And I got some news from Roger Goodell today. What is up, Finn fans? Yes, we're going to sit down, react. I have not watched this video yet, but I'm pretty sure Travis Wingfield probably killed the interview with Mike McDaniel. We're going to watch that. It's about a 10, 18-minute video. We'll watch it, react. Obviously, I'm going to stop and pause, but I'll link the actual video below if you want to go watch the real thing. But real quick, Roger Goodell was at the Super Bowl, the SoFi Stadium today, addressing the media. They were talking to him, asking him a bunch of questions. Obviously, the whole allegations with Brian Flores came up, the Rooney Rule, all that stuff, and also Stephen Ross came up. And this is from Roger Goodell's words himself. He says there is a bylaw in essentially the contracts that they sign as an owner of an NFL team that says, I do believe the owners have the ability to remove an owner. So essentially what he's talking about is if Stephen Ross is found guilty of saying to Brian Flores, I'll pay you $1,000 a loss, and also trying to get him to meet whichever quarterback, everyone's speculating that's Tom Brady, but I'm not speculating on anything, whatever, high profile quarterback on his yacht tampering, Goodell said he would get the highest punishment, and then also said that the owners have the ability to remove an owner. So if the other owners found that having bribed or trying to bribe Brian Flores to throw games so we can get a better draft pick really hurts the integrity of the game, the owners could try and vote Stephen Ross out. So we'll keep an eye on that. Again, the only way that Flores can really get this going and really stamp something big happening, he has to have proof. Now, he said he has proof. His lawyer said he has proof. So we'll see how this pans out. But that is the only, because hearsay is not going to really work. He has to have proof. So we'll see how that all pans out. But let's jump into Travis Wingfield sitting down with Mike McDaniel. Again, I'm putting this video out late. You're probably seeing this 11:30-ish, 10 a.m. tomorrow. If you're watching this tomorrow, it might have already happened. Or if you're watching this early, later today is the official press conference for Mike McDaniel. I will break that down around 5, 6 o'clock. That video will be out where I sit down. We look at what they say, all that good stuff, and we'll break it down. But let's jump into what Travis and Mike McDaniel had to talk about.
What's up, Dolphin fans? Travis Wingfield here, the host of the Drive Time podcast on the Miami Dolphins Podcast Network, and I am joined today by the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Mike McDaniel. Coach, welcome in.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Happy to have you in. So day one is in the books now. You've completed your first day here in South Florida. Initial impressions, have you met the staff and the players, and just kind of walk us through how your first day went?
There's been a lot of energy. It's been very much enjoyable. You're sitting there just eager to meet the people that you know you're about to spend your foreseeable future with. And so you got to pace yourself. You got to breathe and tell yourself to slow down. But having some of the players come through has been awesome. Really meeting the people and the environment and the excitement has been invigorating. So it's been pushing me through. When I'm tired, I just walk in the hallway, see somebody's energetic face, and keep moving.
We appreciate you coming all the way to the East Coast and kind of hitting it all rapid speed and getting out here fast. And this is the next part of your football journey. And I was reading a little bit about you before you came in here, and that you rode your bike to Denver Broncos training camp as a kid. But I wanted to ask you, when did football really first capture your imagination? Do you have a specific moment you can go back to and say, that's when I knew football was my path?
It's a good question. I'm going through the files right now, and I think it's one of two. I can remember sitting on my floor in a house looking at Topps 1985 cards and looking at Mark Duper and Mark Clayton, and I didn't have a Dan Marino because that would have been worth something. But then some Bronco players. I was a Bronco fan when I was in Denver, and that was an impactful moment. Or I think my first NFL game might have been 1987. You have to check the facts, but I was like in the nosebleeds, and the story my mom tells me is that we were the Broncos were getting They were either blowing out or getting blown out. Regardless, it wasn't a close game. It was kind of cold, and I made her stay until the very last snap of the fourth quarter. And that's when she said, "You're a football psychopath."
That's the sign of a true fan.
Yeah.
Staying the whole 4 quarters. That's good to hear. So now you're here with the Dolphins and you're taking over the program here. When a team comes in here to play the Dolphins in South Florida on the road or otherwise, what do you want them to think? This is the first thing I have to take away from a Mike McDaniel-led Miami Dolphins team. What's the one thing you want teams to know about when they play the Dolphins?
They have to match our energy. I think it's a big deal that is a lot of times overlooked when you have a collective group of players playing at a different energy level. And it's something that you have to practice, that you don't get the week of. It's something that has to be ingrained in your DNA, and it's something that you should really have to earn together to be able to play at a speed. And regardless if it's run, pass, we're in a 3x1, 2x2, 2-back, we're in 22 personnel, they're going to feel us come off the ball and have to defend the entire field from the first snap to the last.
Love that. Love that. Love that he's talking personnel. Love that he's talking packages. Is he using those packages? Did he give us a little hint on the offense he's installing? But I love that he used the energy, and because playing in South Florida, a lot of people are like, oh, I've heard other fans say it's not that hot down there, or it's not that bad down there. You come down September, and if they're playing at that high velocity that Mike McDaniel's talking about, which we train in, which they train in, they play in, to match that intensity is going to be hard for teams in Minnesota, Green Bay, all these Buffalo. So I'm very interested to see if he does have that up-tempo, fast, speedy offense going. I'm very excited to see that.
Energy idea matches well with early season weather down here. I don't know if you've ever played a game in South Florida or coached a game in South Florida. You have experience with that?
My first NFL game was in 2005. My first regular season game. I was with the Denver Broncos playing in Miami, and we got lapped.
I know the game well.
We were down to we had safeties playing corners, and we were gutted, had no chance. It was over in the early third quarter. So yes, I've felt it heavily and know what kind of competitive advantage it can be.
Jason Taylor had an 87-yard fumble return for a touchdown in that game. Remember that game really well.
Now you're just stat flexing.
A little bit. I mean, that was a big one for us, a big blowout victory over a team that was supposed to beat us that day, so that was a fun one. But I'm sorry it wasn't the same for you on the other sideline. I apologize. So there's a great clip on social media right now with all the content we had earlier this week in your hiring, with you talking to Tua Tagovailoa on the airplane. I wanted to ask you about that clip and just how it was to kind of meet him through the phone.
It was fun. It was choppy. The Wi-Fi experience was kind of weird, but no, it was really cool to feel his energy. It didn't matter that sometimes we're breaking in and out. He was just excited to talk to me, and that excited me. I was excited to talk to him. It's something that everybody's been waiting for. Waiting for the powers that be to decide we're going in this direction. And they did, and we're all excited about it. And I couldn't be happier to work for this franchise, for an incredible owner, and work alongside a credible GM and all of it. And I think he could feel that energy, and it was obvious on his face and his tone of voice.
Is that what you're most excited about working with him, his energy?
No, I'm excited about a player that wants to get better. Mm-hmm. And point blank, it's in the coaching-player relationship, both parties have to participate, and you can only get out of a player what they're willing to put in, and so I'm excited for him I can tell he's really going to attack it. He's a player that has an internal chip on his shoulder, and but we have a lot of work to do, and that will be a really fun day when we first get on the field. But first and foremost, we have to get him. We have to get a staff to coach him, and then some plays to study, and a playbook to study, so that he can study some film and get to that point, which we're all excited about.
Yeah.
This is where he has to prove the doubters wrong, because there's still that stigma, that cloud above his head, where he said he didn't know the playbook very well, and people are now coming up with this narrative that he golfs more than he practices, even though in the offseason he took his receivers and went on a field to teach them the playbook. But again, there's this narrative that he golfs instead of practices. There's all this stuff out there. Now is the time to shut it down. Now is the time to learn the playbook under Mike McDaniel. Now is the time to move forward. Because again, what we have to realize is Tua Tagovailoa is not Mike McDaniel's quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa was Brian Flores' quarterback. As much as, again, there's that narrative out there that Brian Flores wanted Herbert over Tua, it's not true. That is the quarterback that he drafted. That's who he's attached with. So, again, this is another situation where if this doesn't work out, he can cut ties, Mike McDaniel, and get his quarterback, because Mike McDaniel didn't draft Tua Tagovailoa. So this is when Tua shuts a lot of people up. Or those people get louder because he is what everyone is out here making rumors about. So I'm very, very excited to see what Tua can do with Mike McDaniel.
And your quarterback's going to be obviously the conduit for the offense, or on the field for your offense. And, talking about Tua and just earlier you mentioned 3x1, 2x2, kind of some of the offensive designs there. What does it look like for you in terms of when you go to design a play? How does that process kind of work for putting together a play for Mike McDaniel?
Well, that was a cool question. I've never got that one before. And the long and short of it is I look at offensive plays as problem-solving solutions. So I don't really sit there and think, okay, what can be cool? I look at what is the defense? What defense do they play? What issues do they have? Where are they vulnerable? And how to attack it? And then you think back to the library, what are they defending? How do they want to defend you? What have they been practicing? And all of those things formulate, okay, well, let's do this one play that you could do any number of ways, but let's take the tight end and motion him from left to right. Or let's start him in the backfield because we have another play that plays off of that. All of it is finding solutions that the defense presents. And then, okay, well, what ways can we take advantage of our offensive personnel? Hey, Waddle's really fast. Let's line him up over here and make him defend something deep and then run the ball behind it. Things like that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think Dolphins fans are going to love to hear that. So obviously you have a
that's what we kind of wanted last year. If you guys remember during the offseason last year, we added Will Fuller, we have Waddle, we have Devontae Parker. It's going to be one of those situations where we have these speedy receivers. They're going to get down the field. They're going to open things up underneath, and we can run the ball. Never did any of that. Now he's talking about taking Waddle and his speed, running him verts or something, run him down the field, having that being defended, run behind him. So I'm excited.
Extensive history of coaching offense in this league as offensive coordinator, receivers, running backs, the whole gamut, as you well know. How does leading an offensive room or a receiver's room, running back's room, eventually an offensive room, prepared you to take over an entire football team and be a head coach of the Miami Dolphins?
I think sometimes people can overcomplicate coaching, and what's very comforting to me is coaching a receiver and being a receiver coach wasn't that different than coaching an offensive group. Because what you're doing is you are establishing a connection with players and saying, hey, here, I'm going to prove to you how I'm going to get you better. And if they buy what you're selling, they listen to it and they apply it. And that relationship that where, hey, player, you're depending on me. It doesn't matter what position I'm coaching, as long as you are talking to them and really engaging their mind, and they can establish, hey, you know what? Whatever he's saying, if I listen to it, man, that's going to make me better. They will do anything for you. And when you're talking to a team, guess what? As an offensive coach, if you do know what you're doing, you have to know defense. It's impossible to be able to coach offense without knowing defense and vice versa. So those types of things for players, all they want to do is get better. You know, they want to play their best. So you establish that you can make them better, and hey, they'll do whatever for you.
So kind of on that same train of thought about the defense, you inherit a defense that has a lot of production and a lot of players that have caused that production from the previous couple of years returning to this team. How do you maintain that defensive performance we saw the last couple of years here in Miami?
Well, there's I heard this early in my career, and I think it's very true. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You don't stay the same. So I think that hunger that they've had here is very important, but you don't stop where you left off. You continue to grow, and that's all I see from the people in the building and the players that I've talked to, is they're not saying, hey, that was cool to be a pretty good defense. No, we want to win football games. Well, if we have to be the very best defense in the league to do it, let's do that. If we can be marginally worse, but the offense can be a lot better, let's do that. It doesn't matter. It's just a team sport. We're focused on the team getting better and the team winning football games, and knowing that last year, it's a foundation, but it doesn't mean anything moving forward.
Love that. Love that he said that. For one, it's a team sport. You're either getting better or worse. You're never staying the same, 100%. Defense did go back a little bit this year than they were last year. Could it be because of moves that were made, schemes that were changed until they were changed back? Plenty of things. But I love that he says that. I also love that he talked about that the players will listen to him and the players will respect him when he shows them that, look, you listen to me, you're going to get better. You listen to me, you do what I say, you're going to do well. It all comes down to winning. If Mike McDaniels starts winning, we start out 3-0. All of a sudden, these guys are going to listen to him. All of a sudden, a lot of people are going to start noticing him.
Absolutely. And one area of, I suppose, more modern day football, maybe further back than people realize, but in all three phases of the game, analytics have really taken on their new role in the National Football League. What's your approach to analytics and how they can benefit a coaching staff or a player, just the entire operation?
I tend to try to really focus on the numbers that are right. No, it's a useful tool, but like anything else, you can't take anything as an absolute. So you take in the information, like, hey, I understand why it's overtime. You should probably go for it on 4th down here, but you.
Oakland Raiders game. Sorry, Las Vegas Raiders game. Brian Flores kicking the field goal instead of going for it on 4th down and overtime. Please.
Also, my opinion, you have to be careful to do anything in absolutes, and you have to understand, okay, what's the situation? What's the time of the clock? How's our defense playing? What if we give the ball back? All of these factors. So it's a tool like anything else, but you use it with every other piece of information to try to make the best decision.
Is there kind of a process for how you determine, the best way to handle certain situations in terms of late game or timeout management, clock management? Is there something that you can kind of look back to in your football life and say that's prepared me for that challenge here as a head coach?
No, you try not to miss a rep along the way. I've been very mindful of, it's been documented. I've been pretty ambitious during my career. I've had being a head coach in my mind for a long time. And if you're...
That's our new tight end / head coach, assistant head coach right there, John Embry. That's him right there.
Serious about that. Every single game, you don't miss a rep. So what I've tried to do is put myself in the position of the head coach for the last 15 years, because you'd hate to all of a sudden get in a situation like I feel unprepared. But even that's not enough, because there's so many situations that happen. So you have to, your coaching staff has to be able to acquire multiple situations. We've had something in the past that I plan to employ called Around the League, where weekly we take different situations that come up so you can review, and then in the off season you have to review. Everything is built towards trying to make the best informed decision with all the variables that are compounding, and there's never an absolute, and you're only right if it works.
And all of that has led you to coaching some of the top running games in the National Football League the last few years. I wanted to get your take on just how important and how valuable the running game is in the modern NFL, and the importance of balance on offense as well.
I'm cutting that. Everyone's wanting to hear this answer, but I'm hearing a lot of people say that this is the new style NFL, and passing wins you games, and running the ball and pounding the rock is old school. Let's see what Mike McDaniel has to say.
No, it's I think it's extremely important in terms of you can really play to the strength of your team when you have a good defensive team. I think it's important to dictate the terms. Like when you're running the ball, you're taking more time off the clock. When you're taking more time off the clock, you know who doesn't have the ball? The other team. It's hard to score when you don't have the ball. So all of these things will always be important in football. I do think there's a competitive advantage as of late, where this league is cyclical. It goes in trends, and there's a lot of people that are pretty excited about throwing the ball. Mm-hmm. And I think that does give an advantage to people that try and know how to run the ball. But it still means you have to be good at passing the ball as well to be a complete team. But in football, because you have to have the ball to score unless you turn it over, there will always be a competitive advantage if you can run the ball well.
Yeah, just this last playoff run, we saw your 49ers take a couple of top quarterbacks and keep them on the sideline with that running game. And so with that in mind, you've been a part of a lot of playoff teams and coaching a lot of big games and playoff games. How do you think that experience prepares you for the possibility of coaching in big games down the line here with the Miami Dolphins?
The more you coach in big games and playoff games, because there's a different atmosphere in them, the more I just got the chills, because it's a different atmosphere, but you become much more comfortable with it. So it feels like a regular game. And that's the key. You want to really put yourself in the position that your heart rate's the same, your intensity is the same at all times. You want to practice deliberately. So you're trying to replicate that energy in practice. It's tough, but you try to. And then the regular season, playoffs, the more they're all the same, the more you're making decisions for the right reasons, which is your job to do, and the more that the moment doesn't become too big, to the point that there aren't really nerves when your whole season's on the line. You're just worried about doing what's best for your team and making the best possible call that can put your players in position to be successful, hopefully.
Yeah, and a big part of that obviously is kind of having that message throughout your coaching staff. Can you kind of take us through the process of filling out a coaching staff and what's important to you in those positions and those roles? This
is a business of relationships. It's lost in a lot of it. They're in fantasy football and all that stuff. You really lose sight of the fact that these are human beings that have to play together. There's 11 of them at the same time, and the objective is who can operate the best together. So within that, coaching staffs are extremely important in the same regard, where you have to have communicators, you have to have leaders, but they also have to be able to maintain relationships with these players, because they are asking the players to do something in a violent sport that if put themselves in harm's way for the sake of the team, and the only way you do that is by establishing relationships. So that's first and foremost. I look at, for communicators, people that can establish relationships, and good teachers. And then at the end of the day, you assemble as many of those as you can. You should be able to set your team in the right direction.
Earlier you mentioned your pursuit of being a head coach for your entire coaching career. I don't know if you saw this earlier, but a friend of yours, Jeff Darlington from ESPN, tweeted out a resume that you sent him back in 2005 with the Denver Broncos, or to get that job with the Denver Broncos, and you sent it to him on an Excel document. That got a lot of people talking on Twitter about the idea of putting a resume on an Excel document. What was the thought process there?
Because I hate word tab functions, and I was trying to find an edge in the resume game, and I had like this, I thought it was pretty cool at the time, but I had like, in Excel you can like merge all cells on the right hand side and then like do whatever feature that is, and I had my signature in like cursive. It didn't work, but
I think it did.
I mean, I could have just used Word, but that was the reason, and it was risky business because I'm not that good of a speller, and Excel doesn't really have spell check, or at least it didn't at the time. So, but you know, no guts, no glory, I guess.
I love it. I have one more question for
In
you.
the Excel game.
It's a complete departure from what we've been talking about, but no vegetables?
Yeah, not really.
So what does a meal look like for you?
I mean, no green vegetables.
No green vegetables.
I'm a potato guy.
Potatoes.
Meat and potatoes. I kind of eat like a kid. Like any caloric intake is great for me, but very big meat, chicken. I was raised out west in Greeley, Colorado, which is cattle country. So burgers, fries, all that jazz.
We got plenty of options downstairs. Jackie, the Jack Shack, they call it here. Lots of great food options for you down there. That's all I got for you, Coach. Appreciate your time today.
It was awesome.
What's up, Dolphin fans? Travis Wingfield here, the host of the Drive Time podcast on the Miami Dolphins podcast.
Absolutely great interview from Travis Wingfield. If you haven't followed him yet, if you haven't went and followed his podcast, please do that. Travis does fantastic work, but it was a great interview, great insight on our new head coach, Mike McDaniel. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think, what you think of what he had to say on some different things, on his different style, his fundamentals, his philosophies. Like I said, tomorrow, if you're watching this late on Wednesday night, tomorrow, 10 a.m., he will be having his press conference. And if you're watching this, you might have already watched it. But I will be breaking that down later today. But other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to do more like this, more reaction stuff. Let me know what stuff you'd like me to react to. And other than that, I'll see you tomorrow or today, depending on, again, when you're watching this. But like usual, stay classy and fins up.